Teachers, parents and pupils of Laerskool Queenswood in Pretoria fondly remembered Latoya Temilton during a memorial service yesterday. The 12-year-old grade 7 pupil drowned at the weekend during a prefects camp. At the same time, Gauteng Education MEC Matume has ordered an independent investigation into this tragic incident. This probe will run concurrently with police investigations. Now, for more on this conversation, we're now joined by Naptosa Executive Director, Mr. Basil Manuel. Mr. Manuel, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. Now, in your opinion, what are the key factors contributing to the rise in drownings at school camps?
Good evening, Katlego, and thank you for having me. We are suffering from a tragedy which has to do with poverty, in that thousands and thousands of children and even adults are unable to swim because they can't access facilities. And many times, children at school don't want peers to know that they can't swim, and they very often pretend, not realizing the danger of that. So unless we start seeing more facilities, municipal swimming pools, that in some areas don't get reopened or there isn't enough money to service them, unless we get more of that going, and in addition have people who can teach swimming to the broader public, we are going to see every now and again an incident like this happening. It's a great tragedy, and it's a massive loss to any parent, and it is avoidable.
It certainly is. And speaking of it being avoidable, I mean, how would you describe some of these safety measures that are perhaps currently in place at school camps to prevent these drowning incidences?
Generally, schools take a lot of precautions, and it is a great pity, and I don't want to second guess what has happened here, but I do know that schools ensure that before children can get into the water, that they are competent swimmers. And when a child has been at a school for a little while, particularly a school that has these facilities, they would have been recognized and assisted already. But of course, we will wait for the investigation to see exactly how this happened. But if more in general, we know that lots of things happen when children are playing. There's horseplay. People are bumping one another, throwing one another around. Somebody slips, and a major accident can happen. And of course, our first port of call is, where were the adults? What was happening? Where was the supervision? And it sounds much easier than what it is. And I'm speaking from the experience of having been a head of a school. It is so enormously difficult when it all seems to be fun until something really bad happens. This is an enormous tragedy. And I can tell you, the school is reeling from this, because that is what happens when a child's life is lost. Worse still, when there are questions to be answered. But it is not an investigation that's the only important thing. It is important because there must be closure, and we must know that nobody was negligent. But beyond that, how do we ensure that there isn't a next child? And only when we equip our children to be able to do these things, which many of us take for granted, that is the only way we stop the tragedy from happening. It doesn't have to do with better lists. It doesn't have to do with more people's eyes. It has to do with the life skill of being able to swim.
I mean, earlier on you put it to poverty in terms of why we are seeing such an increased number of drownings. What would you say are some of the major challenges and obstacles that are faced by school camp staff? I mean, are they conscious, or can they swim? Is water safety a part of what some of the staff that are at these camps go through in order for them to ensure the safety of the students?
I don't believe any responsible school will send people to a camp where there is water involved and use people that are unable to swim. I just don't think that is within the realm of good common sense. I sincerely hope it wouldn't have happened in this or other incidents. But swimming is not the only skill you need. You need to have the skill of being able to save a child when a child gets into trouble. And a swimmer may not be able to do that. It's a person that has other skills. Those are the more important questions, is whether somebody was equipped to be a lifesaver if something would go wrong. Because many people can swim, but they could actually assist you in drowning. And particularly difficult is when a pool is full, when there are many people there. You won't even notice if a child has gone under and has been trampled by some people unwittingly, and the child starts drowning. You won't even notice that, because over and above being vigilant, it is not possible to do a head count every 2 minutes. So when we talk safety, we've got to talk about numbers. We've got to talk about the ratios of the adults and the supervisors and the swimming people to the number of children. And, of course, whether those children have that ability to swim. I don't know if this young girl could swim, but it doesn't matter now. What matters is something went badly wrong. And we sincerely hope that we can get this resolved as quickly as possible. But that is only half of it. As I've said before, the other half is the life skill that must be taught.
I mean, Basil, speaking of teachers that would possibly must know how to swim when accompanying young children at a camp such as this, especially where there is water, in this particular incident, it is alleged that some of the students have said that the teachers then directed some of the boys to be the ones that pull out the body of Latoya from that water. What would you then put that to? Because if as a parent, as an adult, as someone who's put in the responsibility of those children, if their responsibility is in your care, how is it that you would instruct another child to pull out the lifeless body of another child?
It's a very difficult one for me to comment about, because I don't want to interfere with the investigation, but it sounds a little unbelievable, because when there's a crisis, you've got to jump in and you've got to do it. And I sincerely hope that the story is an embroidery on what really happened. I'd really like to believe, and I want to give the benefit of the doubt to the people who take charge of this. And I certainly hope that there was far more responsibility than that.
We've seen a lot of drownings in recent years, especially at schools. Do you believe the Department of Education has taken sufficient initiatives or actions to address the issue of increased drownings, especially at school camps?
I think they have. And many of the officials in the ivory towers that we have see the investigation and holding people to account as the solution. That's part of a solution, but that is not the solution. What has the department done to ensure that more children are equipped to, for example, swim? Swimming is a thing that is around us all the time. Whenever children, adults, go to places of relaxation, they are faced with bodies of water. They want to be part of it. You don't want to be sitting on the outside. And this is what leads people to pretend or jump into something like a pool. And unless, as educators, as the education department, we do more to start equipping those children to be able to swim, then we wouldn't have completed the cycle of attending to the tragic loss of a child.
And speaking about equipping those children, are there training programs or certifications provided for camp staff to improve their ability to prevent and also to respond to water-related emergencies?
The schools have to take that responsibility, and schools that do have pools and do use these facilities, many facilities have already a team of lifesavers, etc. But the teachers that accompany them must be trained. And schools generally ensure that happens. And I sincerely hope this was the case here. We can't leave anything to chance, not when a little child's life is at stake. So there is training offered by a variety of organizations that are about the safety of children, whether it's at the seaside, whether it's in still water like dams, or whether it is in pools. But if you do not equip yourself and regularly train at it, you lose the skill.
Lastly, Basil, what message would you convey to parents and students regarding their role in promoting water safety awareness and preventing drowning incidences, especially at school camps?
Parents, get your children to the many, many thousands of swimming schools that there are. Your child may not be in a school that has a swimming pool, but your child will access water. Please help us reduce the number of fatalities that happen. And to the parents and the teachers and the staff, my deepest sympathy, because I know that this is a heavy, heavy burden, and especially for the parents to carry. When you send your child to school, you don't expect somebody to tell you that she's not coming back.
Most certainly. Basil, thank you so much for your time and for your inputs this evening. That was Naptosa Executive Director Basil Manuel giving us his input there on the recent drowning incidences that are happening at school camps.